AD carry lanes are pretty similar as well. They've both been playing recently a lot of Ashe and Varus, playing sort of utility-based AD carries, but also to add on to one side, the Caitlyn in there for both these guys. It's the Tristana that's actually unique. For Zuna, that'd be an interesting pick to see if it goes into the ban phase.
So my question now, how does Psycho Sid adapt to the new patch, 3.10, 3.11? We know he likes to play a lot of the Shen, a lot of the Zac.
Yeah.
He's even played a bunch of Cannon up in the top lane. Are we expecting a Cannon from him, or maybe something different?
That's what I was going to start pointing to, is that he can play both the tanky frontliner guys who plays the main tank, letting Smithy play more damage, or he can play the guys who fight a lot of Jace, a lot of Kennen. We've seen from him in the past, Elise as well. So honestly, he's one of the more versatile top laners, and I think he can roll with the punches with any given patch.
Well, we'll have to see how the rest of these bans go out. Caster and Ashe, Shen, and Zed have been removed. A lot of these really being quite targeted comfort bans for most of these players, but Ari is still up and available. Mancloud and Xpeke both value their champion as it gets taken away, and I'm very interested to see the Twisted Fate, because I know, again, both of these mid laners like to run it, and Xpeke has actually played it recently as well, even after the changes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I want to know how their champion pools have spread out. Most of these guys have started to play Fizz as well, and there's actually a lot of good, viable assassin options there. I remember actually Nuke Duck learned Talon because he's like, well, they keep banning out my other assassins. I'm going to go learn another one so I can't be banned out. There is, in fact, the TF ban you pointed out. So now it's a lot of mid lane focused bans. The Shen removed from Sid, but Zuna still has all the AD carries he wants to play. I would not be surprised to see him grab Tristana. There's honestly a world of options there for the first pick in the mid as well, because you'll see how these teams shape up their strategies, and it's going to be Orianna.
Safe pick. I mean,
yes.
We see Orianna as it doesn't necessarily reveal anything. It's not necessarily super weak to many things in lane, and the question is now, what is Vulcun really thinking? They've locked in their mid lane, and now they've left everything else up and open. Do you think this is let's see what Fnatic doesn't respond?
So it does a couple of things. So first of all, Orianna does pretty well against assassins because she can defend herself very well. Also brings a lot of teamfight utility, and she can turn people who aren't great initiators like Lee Sin, which we just saw OMG use, into real initiators. They can dive in and say, well, it's ball delivery. You don't have to play something crazy. Evelynn the same way. They can start fights even though they're not hardcore stunners.
One thing I do want to highlight about the Fnatic roster that we've seen Cyanide doing many times during the playoffs was he was running that jungle Aatrox.
Yes.
He ran to it. EU really embraced Aatrox as a champion, and it tended towards the jungle towards the latter parts of the season. And we have seen Soaz playing many Elises in the past as well. So that Elise pick, it really could go either way for that Fnatic squad.
And it's such a strong choice for Fnatic to do, is to allow themselves the option. I remember actually, if you look back at SKT1's most recent game, they picked Kennen and then waited, because you can run it in the mid lane, you can run it top lane, which they ended up doing, and giving yourself that option is so important. But the Sona Steel I actually really like from Fnatic. Not only is it one of Yellowstar's better supports, but it's the go-to support for Bloodwater. For those who don't watch the NA scene much, that is basically his go-to support. It's a bit of a steal, though he's happy to play Zyra as well. But that does give some more control to the Fnatic lineup if they run like an assassin mid without CC.
You have to feel that both of these teams are maybe anxious in this game. They're really taking their time. This is definitely one of the slower pick ban phases that we've seen all day long. As the timer runs down, we are seeing that Vi locked in conjunction with a Corki. So Corki is now 6 for 6, unless my memory is faulting me on the day. Trinity Force really making a viable, and Vi, I know you quite like the pick as well.
Yeah, these are champions that have shown up recently. Vi, without any changes to Vi at all, people were like, champion we forgot about after she got nerfed was Vi. That champion's awesome, and she's really powerful, and she's finally back into the scene. Hardcore initiator, another good ball delivery champion. Now, she can initiate by herself with the Vault Breaker and the Assault and Battery ultimate as well, but just having her on the same team as Orianna means you can lock down a backline target for real and get rid of it, and that's just an important thing to have. When they both hit level 6, you can dunk the mid lane right away as well, and give Mancloud an advantage over Xpeke.
Well, we'll have to see how Fnatic decide to respond. If that is a solo lane Elise, it could also be jungle Jarvan for the likes of Cyanide. Cyanide and Smithy, both of their sort of preferred junglers are still all up and available, the Lisa and the Jarvan, things like that. At the moment, it does look like it's going to be locking in that Lissandra. This is a champion that we haven't seen in a little while.
Yeah, so it was actually temporarily banned from play for a bug that we ended up fixing and put back into Worlds, so now she's available again. But this was the sort of the final pick here for Fnatic's mid lane for Xpeke. It was one of the remaining routinely picked mid laners for him. So Lissandra coming in here. Honestly, I like the matchup against Orianna because you can self-ult and dodge the Vi Initiate. You can self-ult and dodge the Shockwave as well. You can turn the lane into a farm lane. And then Lissandra's roaming is better than Orianna. So Xpeke will actually be able to make more moves than Mancloud can make throughout this game.
We've also seen Soaz playing Lissandra during the course of the regular summer split as well. So, you know, this could be a situation where Fnatic are leaving their final pick to be the top lane counter, or the mid lane counter rather, if Cynide's going to run that jungle Elise, which he's also done before. So I'm just seeing so much versatility from Fnatic. If you're a Vulcun player, is this the right choice? The Nasus and the Zyra, going to close that one out. That's going to be jungle Nasus if I'm not... No, top lane Nasus.
Yeah, so I actually like the fact they went Nasus here, because what Fnatic has actually done successfully is gotten to counterpick every single one of their lanes. They pick mid lane second, they're going to pick top lane second here unless they decide that it's going to be Elise in the top lane here. And as well, the Corki showed before the Caitlyn. So every single carry matchup, Fnatic got to pick and say, here's what you're bringing, here's what we're bringing to build an advantage here. So I think Fnatic have sort of played the pick ban phase very, very well. But now by Vulcun picking up Nasus for the top lane, he's actually going to be very, very good against guys like Jackson or Aurelia, who are auto-attack based and can carry a game. And he's picked a matchup that is safe in 1v2, is safe in a 1v1, and actually has certain counter matchups without any real bad matchups for himself.
So we'll have to see how well it can actually be played once the game does go. 8 seconds left on the clock. Fnatic currently sitting on that Yorick. And again, we really need the dust to settle here for Fnatic once the swaps come in to really see how these lanes are going to set up against one another, because there is so much versatility. I would expect this to be a lane Yorick.
Yeah, he played that a lot throughout the European regional. There is that 5% chance it's jungle Yorick top Elise, because yes, SOS plays Elise, and yes, people like Levelin play jungle Yorick, but this is the 99% likely, or 95% if you listen to what I said 5 seconds ago, the 95% likely setup right here is that top Yorick. The teleport here on SOS allows him to split push against the Nasus. But the thing I like about this Nasus pick for Vulcun is you can charge Siphoning Strike on Yorick ghouls. It's not that hard to do, and as it stacks up, you can almost one-shot them. So Sid's going to be a very farm Nasus, and against an auto-attacker like Caitlyn, very susceptible to Wither.
It's going to be very difficult for Soaz to maintain control over Psycho Sid's lane. Both of those top laners running teleports. We'll have to see how they can impact the rest of the map. And while the teams spawn into their bases, let's take a look at who you guys actually think is going to win this matchup. According to LOLesports.com, 74% believe that Fnatic are going to lock down the win.
So this is interesting now because we had different votes come in from the analysts. For once, we finally decided from different people. Yeah. So Monty and Crepo picked Fnatic here. Kobe and Double have picked Vulcun. So if you guys are right, then you're all going to tie the NA analysts up there with Kobe and Double getting it wrong.
We're finally going to start breaking up that top of the standings. They're 4-1 right now. We'll have to see who is going to pull ahead. Make sure you guys keep voting. Head over to LOLesports.com and actually vote for who you think is going to win. We are playing this awesome minigame all throughout the Worlds. As we're loading up into this game, Vulcun versus Fnatic, this is the first game of Group B. Are we expecting any early shenanigans from these teams?
Early shenanigans, it's hard because there's not the best ganks early on from Vi. You can force the issue. But as we saw from TSM against Gaming Gear, they actually waited until the Oblin hit level 6 and then just pile drive the bottom lane. Though as we saw from Lemon Dogs, you can force things early on. If anyone really makes the early move, I think it's Cyanide, because Elise is a great early ganker, and you have pretty good follow-up from Xpeke on Lissandra as well.
Well, we'll have to see how well Cyanide can make that Elise work. Remember that Vulcun are on the blue side of the map, Fnatic on the red. And as it starts out, both teams posturing themselves towards very defensive, almost doorman duty, making sure that neither team is able to invade the jungle and get any sort of early vision down.
It's interesting because both teams have very good brush checking. You've got the Spiderlings from Cyanide. You see it jump out right there. Allows them to run into this brush. So Fnatic safely got a ward in, but this isn't like the Lemon Dogs or SKT early ward games where they got heavy wards on the enemy red buff and then dove in. Vulcun, a bit of a later invade here, but that will also get spotted by SOAS.
Well, SOAS playing a little bit of guard duty. He's going to back away as Psycho Sid, Zuna, and Bloodwater move themselves in. Xpeke is off to the side, though, so if there were a couple more members of Fnatic, I may have tried to pinch them in instead. Vulcun with a little bit of a later ward. This time, not exactly on the red buff, but it'll give them information of as and when Cyanide's moving through his jungle.
What's important now is actually where the lane matchups go, because we've seen early games sour based on where the two men sort of like the 2v1s go and where the junglers end up starting. So I want to look, and it's Psycho Sid being given a 1v2 in the bottom lane. Because of the ward put down right above the Lizard camp here, they knew Fnatic's duo lane was down at the bottom, and they said, we're going to crush SOAS 2v1. Sid, Just survive with Spirit Fire bottom lane. We'll deal with you later.
Well, we'll see how effectively these 2v1 lanes match up. As you can see, in the mid lane, both of our champions, Mancloud and Xpeke, battling it out. Yellowstar and Pushu, they've moved themselves in. They're challenging Psycho Sid and Xpeke here. This is a 2v1. Red buff was secured by Smithy, and they're going to get away. Cyanide forced to flash over the wall as an invade from Vulcun is now applying a lot of focus damage down. Cyanide, 200 HP. That's a flash forward from Zuna. 100 first blood secured. That's in Zuna's back pocket. He now has a red buff to back it up. Peke rooted in place, down to 110 HP. Zuna's trying to chase. It manages to pick up the kill. 2 early kills for Vulcun.
And that's what happens in 2-on-1 lanes. You pressure the buff if it's getting started with only the top laner there. You can build a numbers advantage. Vulcun, they defended it because it was a simple 2-on-2. No one else tried to stop. But Vulcun grabbed Mancloud to the top lane and said, you're going to make this a 3v2 and get us the lead.
So a great start here for Vulcun. Now I do want to highlight there that a teleport was used by Peke in the mid lane. Sawa has actually swapped to Ignite at the last second. So he does not have that map presence available. Just so we can keep tabs on that one. And Cyanide now, without his red buff, is now going to try and solo off this blue himself. Smithy secures his own blue buff and will continue the rounds around the jungle.
So what's interesting now is Soa's going to have an even worse time of this lane. Smithy got a very easy clear and hit level 3. Cyanide is behind and on the wrong side of the map. If Vulcun just wants this turret, Soaz must give it up.
So Soaz is going to at least see that Smithy is coming. Vault Breaker gets charged. Soaz gets smashed down. And you see those denting blows hurting really much right now. And Soaz loses 50% of his HP. Zuna and Bloodwater left uncontested. They're damaging a lot on this top tower.
And what's funny about this is Vulcun won't lose their bottom turret for this because Cyanide hasn't left his own jungle and because Nasus is actually very, very good at 1v2. He has a point in Spirit Fire early on. He can keep his turret in much better shape. He can leave the lane and teleport back, and he'll be in good shape.
Well, we'll see how well Psycho Sid can farm up. At this point in time, there's nobody from Fnatic responding to this top lane. At 4 minutes, 10 seconds on the clock, this tower is down to a couple hundred hit points, and it looks like Vulcun are just going to continue denying the CS and the golden experience from Fnatic.
Yeah, there's a very important choice here for Vulcun. They could continue to siege the top lane and keep pressing that advantage, sacrificing the bottom lane turret, because the thing to remember is Sid's turret now is down to about 1/3. A dedicated 2v2 won't necessarily keep that turret alive for long because Caitlyn Sona can keep pushing. Even if Vulcun lane swaps back to the bottom, Vulcun might just want to... that's a little tricky by Zuna. But they actually might just want to stay up here and trade turrets despite everything.
Well, we'll see what they decide to do. That tower is very, very low. Does get taken down. So before 5 minutes on the clock, Vulcun with a very, very strong early advantage. Doublelift mentioned it. He's talked about it all day long, about how Vulcun are so good at getting an early lead. But we've seen Fnatic over in EU play from behind many, many times. Smitty's coming down to this bottom lane, may step over a Caitlyn trap, does manage to avoid that snap trap, and Pushu and Yellowstar running a little bit of interference now, trying to be a bit wary of Smitty's positioning.
Yeah, so now it's important to note what the map state is right now. The bottom lane turret only has 650 health left on it. It's very fragile and being shot right there by Fnatic. And there you can see, right, even though the dual lane is swapping back, this turret is dangerously low, potentially picked up right here by Pushu.
Yeah, 1 or 2 more auto attacks should be enough. It's down to 1 auto attack. Pushu was pushed away from that lane thanks to the roots coming down by Bloodwater. And now we are going to see this 2v2 matchup for a little while. I imagine if Fnatic do make a concerted effort, it shouldn't be too difficult for them to claw that tower back.
And right now, though, Vulcun has a huge item lead. They have a couple of kills and assists on the Corki. They have turret gold as well. He's recalled and bought a Phage. Caitlyn's stuck here on a Doran's Blade. She will grow a minion deficit here if she stays in this lane. Pushu will fall behind.
Well, take a look at the positioning here from Xmithy over on the side. He's level 4. We'll see if he's going to decide to go in.
Pushy right now, just last hitting some of the plants. Honestly, that minion wave died too fast. If they can re-clear this wave in time, they could have gone for it, but Cyanide showed back up. There's no way they can dive that anymore.
So, Fnatic at least holding on for the time being. Cyanide was hanging around in that tri-bush for a couple seconds, waiting to see if anyone from Vulcun was actually going to set up any sort of dive. At this point in time, CS numbers are very close across the board, about a wave advantage for Pushu as he hasn't needed to lane swap, which is what Zuna has been forced to do in the last couple minutes.
Yeah, and also I want to kind of point out what's happening with Psycho Sid right now, because Soaz has been freezing the top lane and it's caught up. Level 4 versus about 1 minion from level 5. Sid had to go run and ward the top jungle to look out for Cyanide and Xpeke roams. Xpeke is level 6 right now with teleport and can just destroy people. But Sid right here has teleport. He can join his team for a dragon, which is what Vulcan's looking for right now.
Well, we do see the dragon has been started down in the bottom half of the map. Fnatic does have a ward there, so they are aware of it. Xpeke level 5, Bloodwall level 5. They're taking this dragon down very slowly. Fnatic start to group up. We do see the repel coming down. Lands back on the ground, forced to flash away. Cyanide's in trouble. The cocoon does not connect. Here comes Xpeke. Frozen Tomb locks Mancloud up. He is the first victim to fall. Fnatic are on the board, but they did not get dragon.
They did not, and they let the Nasus stay in the top lane in a very pushed lane and just shoved Soaz to his turret. Of course, a cash positive for Vulcan right here, but as we always know, they have to keep the pressure on. They can't let that Fnatic late game get scary.
Well, we do see Soaz and Psycho Sid bashing against one another. While we've got a brief moment, let's talk about this lane Nasus. Oh, we do see Pushu taking some damage in the bottom lane. Freak, I remember we were discussing the siphoning strike farm on Nasai in games that we're seeing. What sort of rate should we be expecting on that Q stacks?
Okay, so everyone knows the whole 10 minion kills per minute mark. If you break that, you're amazing and are farming minions really, really well. I want to propose that lane Nasus can get 15 siphoning strike stacks per minute, and jungle Nasus can get 10. And I'm happy to tweak those numbers as time goes on and we learn more about how these players play. But I want to keep track of 15 per minute and see where he goes in this game.
And just remember that of normal minions,
10 minutes.
That's going up by +3 per siphoning strike. And on larger minions and monsters, it'll be +6. Psycho Sid right now is at +66. So we always like to keep tabs on those siphoning strike stacks, as it were. So as in Psycho Sid, they're not paying each other any attention at all. That is the definition of a tanky bruiser farm lane.
Yeah, exactly. You have the early Doran shield here for Soaz, wants to take less damage from auto attacks. There's the push finally from Fnatic. They have so many minions here, but Vulcan, doesn't matter, the minions are theirs. There's the push lane from Caitlyn and Sona. When the turret's that low, you're going to get it eventually. It's a matter of time. And Vulcan, of course, going to lose that, but they're still going to try to build a farm lead. The top lane, we talked about it being a farm lane as well. That's happening so far.
Well, Xpeke charges up this Vault Breaker. He was toying with the idea of jumping on Xpeke, but did decide against it at the end of the day. Backs away cleanly. Once again, Psycho Sid, he's basically pitching a tent and frying some s'mores right now because he stayed there so long. 44 CS, Negatron Cloak to his name, finally backed away. And Fnatic, you can feel the tension in their gameplay right now. They're not willing to contest or fight because of that early advantage that Vulcan were able to accrue.
And Vulcan just now have the ability to dive themselves. Smithy is level 6 on Vi, and Mancloud's Shockwave is up. They've rotated Bloodwater to the mid lane here. The opportunity to just force kills here from Vulcan is around, but it's interesting, they're actually waiting. They're saying, you know what? Let's get Zuna huge. Let's wait on Trinity Force before we make any major moves. He's freezing the bottom lane. The rest of his team is putting pressure elsewhere and buying some time for him. So Vulcan are actually content to play a bit patient here.
Well, let's see how well it works out for them in the CS numbers once again, sitting fairly close across the board. Soaz with a small advantage over his opposite number. In the jungle, it's Xpeke with a tiny gold lead as well. Only 100 gold separates the top lanes. It's actually very, very close across the board. 500 gold for your AD carries. It's not a massive difference at the 10-minute mark. So this game could not be closer. Zuna and Bloodwater now with a couple seconds of uncontested damage on this tower. Yellow Star does not even have his crescendo yet, so the potential of jumping on Vulcan is not there.
And I've got to say, I'm impressed with Fnatic's play so far. As you mentioned all the gold numbers, you've got a Vulcan squad who are up a dragon and a kill, including First Blood, and are only up 1,200 gold for that. That's less gold than dragon and extra kill are worth. So Fnatic, despite a very rough 2v1 where he got zoned out, despite this Nasus free farming, Fnatic are farming lanes better than Vulcan are. So this slow-paced game where farm just keeps showing up is in Fnatic's favor.
Well, we'll see how well they can continue to grow that, to close the gap and maybe catch up to Vulcan as far as gold is concerned. Soaz now really pushing this lane quite heavily. He doesn't have any wards in his inventory, so does need to be a little bit cautious of staying this deep in Vulcan territory. But I do want to highlight the pink wards, you know, littered across the red buff jungle area of Fnatic. That's quite a lot of pinks invested this early on.
It's interesting too because that's the side of the map where where Psycho Sid is, and Sid is not exactly the best gank follow-up. He's trying to basically max Siphoning Strike. Now, it does keep him protected from Cyanide and Xpeke, but this is not a place where you're going to be able to force kills. When you compare to what Smithy can do on the Pushu and Yellow Star, that's a much bigger sort of impact where you can Assault and Battery and a Grasping Roots and just kill the AD carries and get Zuna huge. Well,
we'll see how Vulcun decide to play that one out. 1 minute 20 on the clock before Dragon respawns. Cyanide has been able to sneak himself into this bush, and Psycho Sid has no idea. There's no vision there.
No, there's not at all. It's a very successful sneak. I want to know if they do enough damage, because it's not like you do a ton of damage there with York, but there's the engagement on Psycho Sid.
The cocoon does land. We'll see if Psycho Sid decides to throw down that ultimate. He just walks away. Did burn the ghost at the last second, but saves his ultimate, as we do have a very, very brief pause as Xpeke charged up that Vault Breaker.
I'm looking at Vulcun on your screen right here, going to figure out what the issue is with these guys exactly. It was actually Cyanide who called the pause, though, so it might be something actually on
fun in Group B, but Game 6 of the day.
Yes. So to recap, the analyst desk said that, well, 2 had predictions that Vulcun was going to win. 2 said that Fnatic was going to win. The audience thought that Fnatic was going to win. But if you trust the analysts, Vulcun can't lose this unless their arms are really, really strong. So here's the second Dragon. Right, they got the gank at the bottom lane right before Dragon spawned, making it a well-earned Dragon.
Yeah, so that's going to give them a close to 3,000 gold lead right now, unless my math is completely terrible. And it does work out. There we go. Psycho Sid continues to farm up his Siphoning Strike. It's over 120 right now, so farming up relatively well, not quite hitting that 15 per minute, but to be fair, he was in a 2v1 lane. Right now, Fnatic group up as 4 members try to focus down this mid turrets.
And they've got some pretty good pressure. They've brought in the Caitlyn as well, even though she didn't go for the Bloodthirster build that we tend to see. She did go early Berserker's Grief, so her attack speed plus straight attack damage. Oh, the Shockwave!
Oh, massive damage. Yellowstar does manage to get away, though. Now we see Soaz diving onto Mancloud. Stranglethorns throws up Pushu, probably the most valuable target. Forced to flash over the wall from Zuna. Now Soaz is the target. His armor has been broken by those denting blows. Zuna throws down the Phosphorus Bomb. The Xpeke manages to flash out. Everybody is still alive. How are they doing it? We do see the Vault Breaker, but backwards from Xpeke. Fnatic turn tail and book it, but make it out cleanly.
Did Psycho Sid do much in that fight? Like, I'm trying to remember if he actually came down. He certainly didn't ult. He didn't teleport. Pretty sure he just farmed a bunch of minions, and Vulcun won that with a 4v5 with a turret on their side. And that's kind of the issue, right? Fnatic, their only engage is... Yeah, okay, there's a blue buff steal. Their only engage really is Xpeke. He didn't use any of his major engagement tools. They sort of realized that they couldn't really kill Vulcun under their own turret, and it was weird that they tried, because Vulcun can just kind of blow you up with shockwaves, as you just saw.
It looked like some miscommunication from Fnatic. They were sort of half in, half out after taking that damage, but they made it out cleanly. They didn't give up any more kills, and I guess that's really what counts at this point in time.
But this is so weird. Vulcun has hit a huge power spike right now. They've got the Trinity Force done on Corki. He is going to be ready to kill people. He's off on the side, ready to jump in. His shockwave's up in like 12 seconds. Vulcun just force a battle.
Well, we'll have to see if they decide to do that. Assault and Battery is available, and Xpeke making his way towards that mid lane, but Fnatic once again are backing themselves out, getting away cleanly, and deciding they not feeling brave enough to stick around in that mid lane.
So this is interesting, actually. So Vulcun, despite hitting a power spike, despite having the Trinity Force, having a clear lead, they're not trying to press a major advantage. Smithy picked up his own red buff again. They could have given that to Zuna and said, let's go Siege. Trinity Force is done. You have a blue buff. You can spam rockets. Like, if Vulcun wanted to push, my god, they really could right now, and they'd get turrets out of it. But as the analyst desk said, there's not necessarily a late game hope even here for Fnatic, even though it's their normal gameplay style. And if Vulcun just wants to say, great, everyone hit 6 items and we'll win because of our champion selection, then they're happy to do that too. And because they have the lead, Fnatic can't stop them.
Well, we'll have to make sure Vulcun don't get caught out of position.
Yeah.
It is something that we have seen them doing in the late game during the course of the NA Summer Split, and it's a mistake that will cost them dearly against a team like Fnatic, who truly do play the map very well. You can see that Fnatic are still remaining split up for the most part. They grouped up in the mid for a couple of attempts, but now they're sticking to that sort of 3-lane CS control right now.
And this is going to be just their standard styles. Get Nasa's huge. He's got the Spirit Visage done. And what's interesting, actually, is you've actually now got a slight lane mismatch. Because Psycho Sid is in the bottom lane, but fighting against Pushu. And Pushu is an AD carry. Now, we said, oh, but he's got Wither, it's so powerful, he'll shut down Caitlyn, but not at this stage of the game. He doesn't have any armor on Nasus. He doesn't even have Wither maxed out right now. He's actually only got 2 points in it, 2 in Spirit Fire with that max siphoning strike. So if he actually battles Pushu and Yellowstar can force Sid out of lane.
Well, we'll have to see if Fnatic decide to press that advantage. As it stands, Pushu still has not completed a major item. BF Sword and Pickaxe is all he's working with. Xpeke, on the other hand, Seeker's Arm Guard plus that Negatron Cloak. Negatron Cloak was actually the first item that Xpeke went back to purchase. So he's also working towards his first item. And if you were Fnatic, I imagine the thinking is farm until we've completed items, then pick fights, because it doesn't really look like they've committed to any major objectives yet.
Fnatic are looking for a narrow window for openings. Unfortunately, there's a gank potentially on Soaz right here. This could be rough.
Soaz is in a bit of trouble. Takes some damage there. Zuna carries on Assault and Barry, slams him into the ground. Omen of Death goes down as he continues to try and focus out Zuna. Will get taken out as Zuna gets away cleanly thanks to Valkyrie and Mancloud. Just 1v1 Cyanide. A full burst combo takes him down.
But Smithy's going down right above Baron.
And we hit Zuna saves Smithy. What a flash. Ace in the hole. Not going to do it.
I can't believe Smithy didn't die right there. He got caught out by Xpeke and Pushu up in that top jungle as he tried to run away. All right, so what I was talking about before, though, with Fnatic was, so the analyst is saying they don't have a late game potential. They're down in gold right now. Fnatic needs to hit item breakpoints, important item breakpoints, like it's Abyssal Scepter, maybe Zhonya's Hourglass, maybe Muramana combining, or Infinity Edge being done, and do something with a small item ledge and hope you can challenge something.
Well, we have to say that Vulcun right now extending that lead, 6,000 gold. This is a replay of Cyanide just getting taken out.
Yeah, he's alone, didn't have flash up right there, no jungle camps to go to as well. And here's like Smithy, right, gets rooted up, gets stunned as well. Smithy has to flash, and then just look at this. This is glorious. Oh! Barely gets it. Zuna's a man.
This has to be the first time that Zuna's caught some damage skill shot that hasn't cost major objective. So well played to Zuna as now Fnatic group up in this mid lane. They really want to get this tower down, but they're not committing to it.
And look how diligent Vulcun are at getting back to there in time. As lanes start to break down and the map gets more and more spread out, it's easy to sneak turret kills. Vulcun are not letting that happen. Psycho Sid knows when roams are coming his way. They've got 2 to 3 wards in this right-hand side jungle, now 4 on that quarter of the map. They're not letting anyone get caught. They're not letting any pushes succeed from Fnatic.
Well, Vulcun once again heading to the dragon right on time. This would be the 3rd of the game, if memory serves correctly. Psycho Sid backs away, and thanks to the vision that he had done for his split push, and secure that one uncontested. Fnatic, you're way too late in the party, and it's already gone.
And this time around, they don't catch someone on the way out, so no side kill picked up. And just watch at Vulcan's game plan. They're doing this over and over and over again. Psycho Sid gets a lane up to the enemy turret saying, someone duel me, because no one can. And the only guy with teleport is Xpeke, and Xpeke definitely can't duel him. There's the nice job right there by Xpeke, manages to steal away the blue buff. But basically, Vulcan are living in their jungle, and whenever they need Psycho Sid, he'll show up, but until then, stack in the queue.
I think you'll find that was Xpeke securing his blue buff, because he was trying to steal it.
At this point, it's his.
At this point in time, Vulcan have just got complete map control. They'd focused the top off, now they're focusing the bottom. They've backed away to continue farming, and Psycho Sid over 300 damage on that siphoning strike at 20 minutes. I think he's actually ahead of the curve right now in the numbers that we were talking about.
Yeah, Sid has been basically donated a free lane by his team the entire time. Oh, there's a big wave bottom lane. We're not pulling a CLG and giving it to the AD carry. We're not pulling a Fnatic and giving it to Xpeke, always Xpeke. It's Vulcan realizing who's important if Bloodwater gets caught.
Yeah, he's dead. There was way too much damage from Fnatic.
Yeah, okay, so down goes that, and this is actually finally an opening for Fnatic. As they got a pick, Infinity Edge is done, they can go for a turret.
Well, they're going to be able to focus this one down. 3 members of Fnatic facing off against the single defending member of Zuna. Look at the sides though, Xsmithy as well as Mancloud may be coming in. Charging up the Vault Breaker as Xsmithy throws himself down, catches Pushu, the shockwave throws 3 of them backward. Xsmithy chunked down low as Fnatic back away. They do have one down as Psycho Sid throws the Wither onto Xpeke. Zuna closes out another kill for Mancloud. That's a triple for Mancloud. The highest kills in NA, and now the highest kills in this game at 5-1-2. Vulcan aren't done yet. Wither goes down. The Ring of Frost locks them up as we do see Xpeke flashing out cleanly. He does get the ice shots down. Command attack. Dissonance. Attack. Mancloud with the 6th kill of the game.
Absolutely massive play. Mandatory Cloud, Athenians, and a Death Cap. When a Death Cap gets down on Orianna, she deals some real scary damage. And Psycho Sid decided it was time to leave the lane and fight some people. And that's what happened with Vulcun. These guys are huge. They can set up for Baron if they want to. They can honestly probably just keep going for turrets if they did.
Well, talk me through the replay of this mid lane fight, Freak.
So there's the engagement, there's the shockwave right after. That was a beautiful flash by Pushu, but it doesn't matter. Sid shows up, and that's basically all she wrote. Zuna is massive. Pushu's had to run away the entire fight. You'll notice he had an Infinity Edge and basically never got to attack. And it's Vulcun running a train on people because they have the ability to chase things down with Wither, with Command Dissonance, and just with basically sheer force of will. Fnatic weren't allowed to fight the entire time.
Vulcan's just looking so incredibly strong here now. An 8,000 gold lead. They are 9 kills to 4, and Fnatic, it's getting to that point where there's not going to be a lot that Fnatic can do. Even after finally getting that tower down, Vulcun just pinched them in and shut them out. And if Vulcun decides to go for any of these other, inner turrets, there's only one left standing. There's not much left for Fnatic to fall back to.
No, there's really not much opening. They don't even have the super crazy late game potential, aside from as what Doublelift said with kind of a shrug. It's like, well, I'd go for 6 as fast as I could, like I do, but there's Wither. He doesn't have Cleanse, and there's not enough ways to remove that debuff. So this is really Vulcan's game to control. And what I actually want to look at is start paying attention to what Vulcan does, because they've always been sort of, I mean, they've had a lead this big against Cloud9 and didn't manage to win the game. I want to see what they actually do to try to close a game out. Zuna pushing the top lane, Nasus, Psycho Sid in the bottom lane pushing, still with teleport up. I want to see if Vulcun has learned anything since the end of the split.
Well, as it stands, they have fantastic vision control across Fnatic's jungle, and they have had fantastic vision throughout this game. It's definitely going to help them pay dividends once this Nasus split pusher just sticks in lane. Almost 400 bonus damage on that siphoning strike. And, we talked about how Xpeke can't contain him, and we see it happening right there as the rest of Vulcun focus on top.
Yeah, Nasus is too big to be dealt with right here. He'll keep sustaining through, especially with the Spirit Visage. It does multiply the lifesteal from Nasus' passive. It's part of the reason that item is so good on him, in addition to the cooldown reduction, letting him spam that Q more. So Sid will keep pulling attention. Now, Xpeke does have wave clear. Sid actually won't threaten the turret, but they're both going to last hit everything, but Sid gets Q stacks as well. So this is still a better proposition for Fnatic. Or sorry, for Vulcun.
For Vulcun. They gain dividends at the end of it, I guess is the best way to think of it. And 257 CS on Mancloud after falling behind Xpeke in the early game. He's now 40 ahead. Vulcun with an audacious start. They're on Baron.
And look at the ward control they have. There's so much vision in this red side jungle of Fnatic's. They'll see him coming a mile away. Mancloud is actually running interference, but he's safe because he knows where the rest of Fnatic are. This is just almost uncontestable Baron.
Well, we do see the 3 members of Vulcun going very, very low. Baron is safely secured. Now Psycho Sid has been collapsed on. So is Xpeke doing the best they can to shut him down. The Frozen Tomb is available, but Xpeke decides not to use it. They have saved it. The slow lands on the backside of Psycho Sid, and with one more Wither, Sid even gets away. Yep. They've secured Baron, and all it cost him was a Ghost.
Yeah, Wither and Ghost prevents anyone from being able to run past you. Xpeke had already used his Ice Path basically to get into range in the first place, and had no more chasing tools afterwards. It's just simply Sid has been able to free farm this whole lane. He's now going Iceborne Gauntlet just to chase people even harder, just to make sure no one can screw with him. There's honestly... this is going to be a very difficult game for Fnatic to win.
Yeah, in the background there, Ace in the Hole was channeled by Pushu onto Mancloud, and through the Command Protect, it did almost nothing. Mancloud's just got so much ability pound damage, 437 AP on that Orianna right now, 6-1-2. We talked about how important these mid laners are going to be, and a 6-1-2 Mancloud versus a 0-2-3 Xpeke. It's definitely, Mancloud that's flying high.
Yeah, he's doing a much better job with his team. The 1-on-1 initially did go Xpeke's favor, but basically Mancloud's team set him up for success. They just did a better job of running the map. They ganked the bottom lane, went for Dragon. Ganked the bottom lane, went for Dragon. They've secured objectives so much better, and I think they played the lane dance better as well. They got the turret earlier on, Soaz was down to a very early deficit and never got to challenge Psycho Sid. Nasus normally doesn't have the best early game, and Sid got to skip that by saying, well, your early game got worse.
Well, this is the point in the game where traditionally Vulcun have shown more weakness in their gameplay than anywhere else. Closing it out and getting past those inhibitor turrets. And You know, if you do cast your mind back to that Cloud9 epic comeback, it was those inner turrets and the inhibitor turrets that caused Vulcun the biggest problems.
But when Cloud9 won that game, it was basically with Ashe and Zed. They had hard initiate and really good follow-up damage. Fnatic has good initiate. They've got Xpeke in there to basically be one of the other Freljord tribe leaders and lock someone up down with ice, and that's wonderful. But Pushu's Caitlyn is nowhere as scary as High Zed in that game.
Fnatic love the Death Bush. This is something they have done many times in the summer splits, and I distinctly recall Cyanide and Xpeke hunting down individual members. The question is, do they wait for Sid? The vision is there. They're hiding in the bush. Crescendo's available. They've collapsed on him. Psycho Sid's going to do the best he can to get away. Crescendo locks it up. He turns his focus away, and 4v1, not even Sid's going to get away.
But Vulcan's pushing the top lane right now. Fnatic has to recall right away, but they won't show up in time. This should be Vulcan's turret.
Well, we'll have to see how defensible Xpeke can make this turret hold. He's got good wave clear. Tower is down to half. He's decided not to engage yet. The siege minion is all that stands, and Vulcan secure the tower. They've lost one.
It's a 5v4. They have to go.
Out. Cyanide decides not to collapse in. Vault Break is away. Cyanide's considering landing the Fangs, but decides against it. And what you see, Xpeke, he didn't chase either. Soez gets dropped down. That's a shockwave not available. Stranglefall is used to zone out Fnatic, and Vulcan look like they're going to get away.
Fnatic could not find their way in. The only initiator they had was Xpeke. They didn't follow up on the cocoon that Cyanide had landed. That was like the one option. They hardcore went for a single kill and traded a turret out for it, an inhibitor turret out for it, which is not a good trade for Fnatic. The only thing you get from that is a temporary 5v4 on the map. They did not capitalize on the 5v4. Fnatic had one small opening, couldn't get it.
And Zuna does manage to make away. They've caught out Mancloud. Glacial Tomb goes down. They continue to focus him. Cyanide is going to fall. That was a 3v1 that Mancloud has survived. Xpeke throws down Pushu in the background. Xpeke still chasing. Mancloud gets out cleanly. Zuna still alive in the background as the Omen of Death is going to get popped. Now Xpeke turns his focus over to Yellowstar. You can see Soez doing the best he can to get away, and Mancloud survived being jumped on by all of Fnatic.
He's just so massive, so much ability power on that Orianna. I mean, that's basically just a gold lead at work. When you've got hundreds of shield from that, to look at it specifically, it's 240, sorry, what? Yeah, 240 plus 198. That's a gigantic shield. And honestly, Fnatic not having any gold for damage items, they can't break through that.
Ladies and gentlemen, 30 minutes on the clock. Vulcan are 12-5 up. They have a 15,000 gold lead. And it looks like Vulcan should be able to close this one out. They've decided to play it safe. Backed away with all three inhibitors down.
I don't know if they needed to play that defensively, but they're going to choose to do that. Let's take a look at that last fight. So Mancloud gets locked up, but look at that. Pushu is zoned out. There have been zero auto attacks from Pushu. He got the ulti off, but then got jumped on by Xpeke. Xpeke did not get any gold. He can't solo Mancloud. You saw literally zero auto attacks come out of the AD carry, the Infinity Edge Zeal AD carry. Of course you're not going to kill Orianna in that case.
Mancloud just went man mode in that team fight. He's 7-1-4. 11 out of his team's 12 kills he has been involved in and participated, and he's just doing so incredibly well. Look at the gold, 14,500. That is immense.
Yep, he's got 3,000 more gold than Zuna. Zuna's been picking up the scraps of farm, but Mancloud's at 326. Even though that side lane farm went to Psycho Sid and he would slow push, it's Mancloud getting everything. He's on a play-making mid laner like Orianna and making plays.
Well, double super minions are now pushing down both the top, middle, and bottom lane. Fnatic only have 2 towers that stand between them and a Group B defeat. And it's going to be Vulcan just waiting, biding their time for the minions to aid them in knocking over those last 2 obstacles.
And they're looking to close the game out. They're not even bothering setting up wards in the red side jungle. The Barons in 1 minute, they don't care about that. They respawned, got full health and mana, got items with all their gold lead, and are looking to close it out with this push.
Well, see how effectively they can. The super minions in the side lanes are now making it up. Shockwave once again pulls Soez backwards. He uses the Omen Death on himself. Now a 10-second timer available. Take a look at the damage from that siphoning strike. Now that the Ghost of Christmas Past is down, Vulcan turn their attention to the tower. That is a massive chunk from that siphoning strike of Psycho Sid. He's taken down the first tower. The minions are bashing away the second. Vulcan are going to do it. Vulcan are going to pick up game 1 here in Group A. North America has drawn first blood against Europe at the World Championships.
Absolutely great play right there by Vulcan. The crowd standing up, cheering for them. Really good play by these guys. And it was only like a 31-minute game. Vulcun actually did a pretty damn good job of actually closing it out, building off their early game lead, and pushing it through.
Every single question that we posed about Vulcan's gameplay, about Vulcan's control and ability to close it out, has been answered resoundingly in that demonstration.
Yeah, they did. They made, basically from second one, better choices than Fnatic. Champion select. Yep, better comp right there. No great early game sort of focus there for Fnatic. No great late game focus for Fnatic. Whereas there was a clear plan here for Vulcun. They had a late game contingency plan with Nasus. They had initiation power right there. The crowd cheers for the playmakers on Vulcun. Good comp, good play by Vulcun.
What a fantastic game. You know, from the get-go, right out the gate, Vulcun, they came out swinging. They got those early kills. They pushed the towers down. They had complete dragon dominance. I don't think Fnatic touched a dragon. Not even touched it.
They might have seen one?
Yeah, they seen one briefly and heard myths of it being alive, but it was just complete control and basically domination from Vulcun.
It was, and that's really the way to describe it. It was a controlled game. It wasn't like dive after dive after dive after dive right away. It wasn't a crazy high kill game, but there weren't many openings given to Fnatic. There was a couple of picks on the sides there. You know, Smithy kind of got caught out after cleaning up a kill on a Soaz, and he barely escaped, and that was the Zuna flash that kept him alive. You got the catch on Bloodwater in the middle of the game where Fnatic basically tried to then push as soon as Sona went down, but never did Vulcun actually give them more than a small handhold to claw back into the game. One kill was never turned into anything by Fnatic.
One of the things that I was very impressed by Vulcan's play, in terms of their playstyle, Psycho Sid does tend to be left on that sort of island. He does tend to play the sort of supporty type top laners, you know, in terms of supporting the rest of his team. You know, Mancloud and Zuna being the carries, as it were. He played such a good role at drawing Fnatic's attention and controlling the movements on the map because of his vision control and his split pushing. Like, he was never, ever in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's the top lane teleport style. Is you're going to pick someone who can build tanky and still be useful, which is Nasus is great at, Singed as well, and he's going to be constantly a threat. He doesn't have to push fast, but he needs to make sure he has some kind of presence that someone has to deal with him, which he did with Nasus. Shove the lanes down, start putting major damage on the turrets, and started pulling Fnatic apart off the different sides of the map, and allowed the rest of his team, which was a very cohesive four-man unit, the rest of that Vulcun squad could make plays.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be jumping to a very quick break, but when we return, Gambit Gaming and Mineski take to the Rift for their first fight on the world stage. Plus, we'll be joined by